Good afternoon, and welcome to a brief background of the historical, political, sociocultural, and economic situation of South Africa. South Africa had a rich history before colonization. In the mid 1700s, settlers came from different countries and occupied South Africa. The main people group there at the time were the Khoi, and they were suppressed in many ways. The Khoi and other natives fought many successive wars against the settlers, but with little success. The settlers were brutal and unreasonable. The final blow came when the British took over the Cape of Good Hope in 1806. The British troops, known as Redcoats, crushed the native opposition. British settlers set up as close to Western civilization as possible. They subdued the native culture, they introduced the slave trade and modern warfare. They introduced new weapons and more dangerous situations. South Africa was then divided into 4 territories, none of which abolished slavery until 1834. The 4 territories would be seen on this modern map near Northern Cape, the Free State, the Zulu natal lands, and the northern aspect of the country. These would have been the 4 different territories that Britain separated the country into. The 4 territories were then united by Britain in 1910 as the Union of South Africa. Shortly after, Britain receded from the country, leaving the white aristocrats to rule in their wake. The aristocrats created a racially segregated society with white domination in land ownership, legal system, administration, distribution of wealth, and in every sphere of social relations. They called it apartheid and suppressed almost all the rights of native Africans. Throughout the 20th century, protests and peace demonstrations were held throughout the country, some ending with protesters in prison, some ending like the Sharpeville protest in 1968, where 69 peaceful protesters were shot. The apartheid regime lasted until April 24, 1994, when South Africa held its first authentic democratic election. This marked the end of that regime and ushered in a new era of racial reconciliation in South Africa. The South African government is now a unique republic. The Republic of South Africa is a constitutional democracy with a 3-tier system of government and an independent judiciary operating in a nearly unique system that combines aspects of parliamentary and presidential systems. Legislative authority is held by the Parliament of South Africa. Executive authority is vested in the President of South Africa, who is head of state and head of government, and his cabinet. The President is elected from the Parliament to serve a fixed term. The national, provincial, and local levels of government all have legislative and executive authority in their own spheres, and are defined in the South African Constitution as distinctive, interdependent, and interrelated. Within this new form of government, a revolutionary thing has taken place. The power to punish apartheid offenders has been relegated to the Truth and Reconciliation Committee. This has never been seen before in world politics, and is sure to be a revolutionary and transforming ideal. Like many other African countries, when settlers and colonizers came, they did everything they could to suppress the African culture, the African religion, and the African social structure. Before colonization, there had been a large number of tribes, languages, and different traditions. These traditions and tribes were suppressed, the native cultures were suppressed as much as possible in the name of unifying the different peoples of South Africa into one country with one culture. The Khoi had a rich civilization before colonization. They had their own methods of building houses, building communities, fishing, hunting, boat making, medicine, education, and much more. But once the settlers came, the native way of life was seen as completely inadequate. Western living was the only acceptable format, and the indigenous people were expected to assume their lifestyle. The influence of this colonization can be seen today in many ways, from clothing, attitudes, personalities, jobs. Many aspects of culture, including sports, have been formulated and modified by Western colonization. Though it is very challenging, an important part of the sociocultural background is and will be apartheid. Fighting apartheid, with protests and other things, became a huge part of the cultural environment in South Africa. Revolutionary leaders like Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu made great strides in creating a new and effective way of ending bitterness and strife in a country. This is known as the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission is a unique way the country of South Africa is dealing with its abusive past. It's shaping a new culture of mutual and racial respect. Unfortunately, the marks of racism, colonialism, and apartheid will continue to shape South Africa and the study of South Africa's history for many years to come. South Africa has always had a rich economy due to its large agricultural lands and its extensive mineral resources, and in more modern times its manufacturing industry. Since its settlement, colonial governments have taken advantage of the diamond and other mineral resources at the costly expense of the native people. They have been enslaved, forced to mine and farm their own lands, all for the benefit of the settler and the Western countries. The economy does now include a large amount of services and industries. Seen on this pie graph, the largest one includes the financial, insurance, and real estate businesses in South Africa. However, the economy was not always this successful. There were hard points, as you can see in this line graph, during times of transition, like in the 90s, the transition from the regime into the new democratic government created quite a dip in the economic situation. South Africa is a rich country with a rich background. This has been a brief presentation, but hopefully it was an enlightening view into one of Africa's most promising republics.